as we get ready for this next session, we are looking at how they are approaching AI literacy at scale. They will share resources and strategies designed to help students use AI responsibly and effectively. And as you listen, think about how AI literacy may show up in your own context. The floor is yours, Dr. Francis and Erica. Thank you so much again for sharing with us this morning.
Thanks. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'm Erica Getz, the Librarian and Information Literacy Instructor at Penn Foster Group. I'm thrilled to share the work that we've been doing in the Education Department around student AI literacy.
And I'm Dr. Peter Francis, an Academic Director at Penn Foster. Today we're excited to share our Artificial Intelligence Learning Resource Center, which is part of our broader Learning Resource Center ecosystem.
Penn Foster Group serves students across multiple online school brands, including high school, college, and career programs. Because our students are fully online and come from a wide range of academic and professional pathways, we knew early on that AI literacy needed to be something practical, accessible, and really relevant to all of them.
And this guide was built to support all students, not just one program or one level. It sits inside our Learning Resource Center, which is designed to provide supplemental resources supporting student success. In case you were curious what platform this page was published on, since this was built within the library, we created it using SpringShare's LibGuide content management platform. That's a mouthful.
And our broader goal here is simple. We want students to graduate with as much AI literacy as possible. We see AI literacy as a real world skill that they'll need as students, professionals, and simply as humans navigating an increasingly AI inundated world.
And when ChatGPT became publicly available at the end of 2022, it quickly became obvious that generative AI was going to have major implications for education. And like many institutions, we were immediately thinking about both opportunity and risk.
Yeah, so we first published this guide in 2023 as a starting point. And at that time, it included foundational information like what AI is, basic guidance centered largely on ChatGPT, student do's and don'ts, and a set of FAQs.
And what we wanted was something simple and actionable, guidance that students could follow, but also something instructors could reference as well. It helped us define what acceptable student use of generative AI look like in real practice.
And since then, the guide has grown a lot. We've added webinars, citation support, additional Gen AI tools, and we even redeveloped our student AI use policy so that it was more flexible after our thinking on the topic evolved.
So with that context in mind, Erica, let's move to the guide itself and highlight a few sections that may be especially useful if you're building something similar at your own institution. The first section we want to highlight is our AI literacy webinar box.
So what you'll see here is that this section serves as a collection of both upcoming live sessions and previously recorded webinars. We wanted students to have access to both synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities. So if students can't attend live, they can sign up to have the recording emailed to them, along with them also being able to access the recording on this page.
And one thing that's been especially helpful for us is offering a quarterly companion webinar series that is open to all students. That allows us to create recurring touch points without requiring students to already be experts or even especially confident with AI. We were amazed when we offered our first webinar and we had over 3,000 registrants.
Yeah, the first webinar in the quarterly companion series is Introduction to Generative AI. This session gives students a baseline understanding of generative AI tools, covers important definitions like large language models and agentic AI, and introduces at a high level how these tools work. We also make a point to highlight flaws and concerns with the development and usage of these Gen AI tools.
And then from there, we move into the second session in the set, Interacting with Generative AI, where we talk about prompting, critical evaluation, and using these tools thoughtfully. In this session, we do a live demonstration with 5 different tools that we think our students should be aware of.
We had also experimented with open office hour style sessions. These were successful in terms of engagement because students appreciated the lower stakes format and the ability to ask questions.
The challenge, of course, was sustainability. Open office hours are resource intensive, making them harder to maintain, but we do think there's value there, and we can imagine bringing them back in a slightly different format and frequency in the future.
Yeah, so for anyone here thinking about implementation, webinars can be useful because they let you respond to emerging AI developments. So every 3 months we have refreshed recordings that we get to post. Additionally, presenting these quarterly works well for our model because our students can enroll at any point in the year.
And with this in mind, we are constantly providing this introduction Gen I content to students, so new and old students alike have access to this information on a regular basis. These webinars also help make AI literacy feel like an ongoing conversation rather than a one-time policy announcement.
Okay. And so the next section that we're going to show is the blog. So we do have a box here that shows the 5 most recent posts, but I'm going to go ahead and load the whole blog so we can scroll through it a bit as we're talking.
Okay, the blog gives us a flexible space to share updates and practical guidance with students. We use it to announce new podcast episodes, share tips for using generative AI, highlight Penn Foster specific courses and assignment suggestions, and discuss how any new AI developments.
What's useful about this blog format is that it lets us be really responsive. Policy pages and core guides tend to be more stable, but a blog can evolve alongside the technology and the questions that students are actually asking.
And when we first created the Resource Center, much of our guidance was naturally oriented around ChatGPT because that was the tool that students were encouraged or encountering most often.
But as the AI landscape changed, we really realized we had to broaden our scope. Students were no longer just interacting with that one tool, and we didn't want our approach to become outdated or, really reliant on this one tool.
So the blog became one of the places where we could expand that conversation. It lets us address emerging tools, changing norms, and new examples without having to constantly rewrite the foundational parts of the guide.
So for schools and libraries, this is one of the most replicable pieces. You do not need a massive content operation. It's just me publishing these. So even a modest blog or update stream can help you keep your community informed and reinforce core messages over time.
Especially if your main message is that AI should support learning rather than replace it. A blog can keep returning to that principle in fresh and concrete ways.
You'll also notice that all of the articles have a byline. Sometimes they are just me, but most of the time I am collaborating with AI. And so when that happens, it does get credited. So this says by Erica, the librarian, and Aiden, which is our way of referring to AI. And then we'll note specifically which tool. So we say powered by Copilot. It might be ChatGPT, it might be Lex, whatever tool we've used for that specific post.
Okay, next let's move to Learning with AI podcast, which is hosted by the 2 of us.
Okay, and this also has its own box on the page with all the episodes in a playlist, but I'm going to go ahead and open it within Kaltura, which is where we post these, just so you can get an idea of what they all look like. So in the first season, the episodes were fully hosted by us. Sometimes we would have a guest on. We covered topics like academic integrity, our student generative AI use policy, prompt engineering, ethics, and other foundational issues we wanted students to understand.
And we were very intentional about those topics. We wanted students to have a baseline understanding of the questions surrounding AI, not just tips on how to use the tools.
This year, though, we did shift to a new format for season 2. Now we choose a topic, gather source materials on that topic, and then use Notebook LM to generate a podcast episode based on those materials.
Now, we still record a brief introduction ourselves. In that intro, we explain the topic, note any errors or limitations we found in the generated audio, and then transition into the Notebook LM created portion of the podcast.
Transparency is really important to us here. We are very clear with listeners about how the episode was created, and we include links to the resources used to generate it. So I've opened this episode. You can see in our logo, we say that we curated it, but that it was generated by Notebook LM. And then as you scroll down to the description, you can see there's all those resources that we had put into Notebook LM to generate this episode.
And that transparency matters for two reasons. First, it models responsible AI use. And second, it creates a teaching moment. Students aren't just consuming content about AI, they're seeing how AI-generated content should be contextualized, checked, and disclosed. Also, just a quick shout out to what a great tool Notebook LM is for content creation. If you haven't tried it yet, you really should. You really should take a look.
Yeah, and just quickly back to the topic of transparency, we think that makes the podcast itself an active AI literacy instruction because it demonstrates the possibilities and limitations of AI.
And for institutions thinking about scale, I mean, we have roughly 180,000 students that are active at any given time. It's another way where AI can help expand educational programming without replacing human judgment. We still curate the topic, choose the materials, review the output, identify the errors, and frame the final product, but a lot of the work is done by Notebook LM and AI.
Yeah. So again, we have this really consistent message. AI can enhance the work, but it should not replace the critical thinking and oversight that make the work educationally meaningful. However, what it does do is allow us to create high quality podcasts in a much shorter period of time. Okay, so the next section we're going to show is really kind of the centerpiece of the guide, and it is AI do's and don'ts as a student.
If there's one part of this guide that we consider the keystone, this is it. This is where we provide standardized guidance to students and really to instructors as well on acceptable and unacceptable uses of generative AI in their schoolwork.
One of the biggest concerns I know educators have about generative AI is learning loss, and we share that concern. And this section is our attempt to address it directly.
Our core message, which we repeat over and over again, even in this brief webinar, is that AI can be used to enhance learning, but it should never be used to replace learning.
So in this section, we give students concrete examples of productive uses. For instance, brainstorming ideas, helping organize an outline, or perhaps assisting with citation formatting.
And these are uses that can support the learning process while still leaving the actual thinking, synthesis, and demonstrative learning with the student.
So we also spend time naming the risks. We warn students about bias, discrimination, hallucinations, and sycophancy in generative AI tools. We want them to understand that these tools are not always accurate or neutral.
And we're equally clear about unacceptable use. The major red line for us is using generative AI to complete an assignment for the student.
And that's because the point of coursework is not simply to produce something that looks finished. The point is to gain the skills and knowledge that will matter later in real contexts.
And researchers say that the struggle is where the real learning happens. Offloading the struggle completely to AI might help in the short term, but it undermines the long-term purpose of education.
And this section also helps instructors. Instead of each instructor having to invent their own language around acceptable use, we can point to this specific shared framework.
And that consistency is important, especially in an online environment serving many programs and student populations.
And at the bottom of this box is a section that we also direct students to get our formal guidelines for using artificial intelligence to create papers and assignments policy. So this part of the guide acts as both practical advice and this bridge to our formal policy.
And for schools and libraries looking to build something similar, this is probably the place we'd recommend starting. Clear examples, plain language, and a strong emphasis on learning outcomes. The last section we want to highlight is citing artificial intelligence tools.
Okay. So because our policy directs students to cite generative AI when they've consulted it for an assignment, we wanted to make sure that that process was as easy and as concrete as possible for them to follow.
So in this area, we provide guidance on how to create both APA, MLA citations for AI interactions.
We also show students how to pull the link to the conversation they had with the AI tool so that if an instructor needs to review the interaction, that record is available.
And we want to emphasize that we do not frame this as a gotcha mechanism or a way to catch students doing something wrong. Instead, it allows the instructor to see the interactions between the student and the AI. It is literally proof that the AI was used appropriately.
Yeah, instead we see citation and disclosure as opportunities for transparency. They help normalize responsible AI use and give instructors insight into how students are actually working with these tools.
That insight can be valuable. It can show whether a student used AI for brainstorming, revision support, or something more problematic. It gives us context rather than just suspicion.
It also reinforces a broader academic habit. If a tool meaningfully contributed to your work, you should acknowledge that contribution clearly and appropriately.
So this section is not just about formatting citations. It's really about teaching accountability, transparency, and reflection in AI-supported academic work. And I'll add one more thought here. If a student knows that they're going to submit their transcript that they had with AI as a citation, it makes them more thoughtful about how they're using the AI. So it's a proactive tool in that regard as well.
Yeah, and so those are the main boxes that we wanted to highlight. But if I quickly scrolled through this page, you'll see there's quite a few that we didn't address. And this really comes down to what you think your student body and faculty and staff would really benefit from having access to. As we wrap up, we really hope that you take from this walkthrough is not that every institution needs to build exactly what we built.
Yeah, and what we really hope is that you see a model for combining policy, practical guidance, ongoing programming, and transparent examples in one student-facing space.
Yeah, so for us, the AI Learning Resource Center has become a way to centralize support and communicate that one consistent message. Yeah, we keep bringing up that AI can support learning, but it should not replace it.
And many of these elements can be adapted at different scales: webinars, blog content, citation guide, examples-based do's and don'ts, or a shared landing page for resources.
So just want to thank you for joining us, and we'd be happy to talk more about what's worked, what we revised over time, and what we're still learning.
Yeah, I want to offer my thanks as well for taking a look at our little corner of AI at Penn Foster. It's something that started small and we built over time, and Erica and I work on that together, and we've had a lot of input from faculty in regard to things that they might like to see. A lot of them have attended the webinars, and we also have had an ongoing relationship with students and their input on what their questions are. We try to keep it broad enough that it's useful, but also simple enough when we're reviewing tools so there are things that are practical, and we don't want students to be bombarded continually with new tools and new things to take a look at. Learn the fundamentals, learn how you can use it to support your learning, and then refer back to. We tried to make this a place where students can refer back to, and if they have a question about whether something is a do or a don't, they've got a place to look. It goes beyond a hardcore policy that sometimes doesn't seem very practical. So if you have questions, we'll entertain those.
Yeah, so I see Angela has asked, but do you have faculty who push back on those guidelines? Maybe they want zero AI use in their classes.
And the short answer to that is absolutely. I mean, if there's one consistent thing across the educational space, it's the fact that there are differing opinions on how AI should be used and how it should be supported. There are those who still think it's voodoo. There are those who think it's the end all be all. There are those like Eric and I who are concerned that overuse of AI, while it's an incredible tool, I mean, I have 3 different AIs open on my tabs right now. I use ChatGPT, the pro level. I've got a very high level Claude that I use, and I have Perplexity that I use, and they're all used for different things. And I check them against each other because I had an incredible hallucination event the other day with ChatGPT. Absolutely misinterpreted an example I gave to it and went off on a different tangent. And I literally had to say, "You're out of your flipping mind," and step back and have it reevaluate what it was doing. So there's a lot of differing opinion, and yet we find that instructors are using it themselves. I mean, I have when it gets to be review time, suddenly I'm seeing reviews that look like they may have had a little help in writing annual reviews, and and so we're all making our way through this, and it is still an imperfect science. And so that's why we've been pretty foundational in the advice that we give and the support that we give to our students. Erica?
Yeah, and the faculty have also been very involved in the process. We've done faculty trainings, and we've made sure that they've been given the opportunity to learn this basic information and become comfortable with it. And we also just work on a pretty different model than a lot of institutions work on. So um, we have a little bit more control over a more general policy than you might see at the average institution.
All right. Well, one of the things that we have a formal group of graders who grade a lot of the assignments that come through. Graders are not allowed to use AI in our system. I mean, that's all done in a very traditional fashion. Um, but we are using it ourselves, and we're trying to encourage faculty to use it as well as they're thinking through their teaching aspects and and all of their activities as well. Okay, I hope that helps, Angela. Any other questions?
Do we have any other questions here for Erica and Dr. Francis?
If there are any questions from any of the attendees, I don't know if our contact information is given, but we're very open to collaboration. And if anyone has questions or suggestions, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to collaborate and exchange ideas on how to better use AI in the educational space.
I thought another question came in from Matthew. Do you know how often students utilize the guide/site overall? Yeah, we pull monthly statistics on this page, and on the blog, so we know how much they're getting used. This page gets a lot more views than the blog does, and I think part of that is when we do those quarterly webinars, we're really, really pushing them to this page. We're talking about this is where you could go to get any of that information. So we definitely drive a lot of traffic there because so in the first time we did the session, we had over 3,000 students sign up for it. But it's been very consistent. We get every quarter that we do this for each of the 2 different webinars, we're getting over 1,000 students signing up. We get about 20% attending those live, and then we send that recording to everybody else, and so we get additional views that way. So the students are really engaged in this topic, and these webinars are optional. They don't have to go to them for credit for their class. This is just that they are really interested in learning more about this topic. So we're just seeing that this is something that there's really a strong desire for from our student body.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Erica, but this page, our AI page is available to the outside. You don't have to be registered or log in order to get to our Learning Resource Center, do you? That's an open.
No, it is
Okay,
is
it's
open.
open, so you can go investigate that and give us questions if you'd like. I did see a question from Barbara about what direction we're going next with AI instruction. One of the things that we concentrate very much on fundamentals, and when I was in the gallery looking at some of the poster galleries early, there's some very good stuff in there about prompting and fundamental prompting. One of the things that we're moving to a little bit more is conversational prompting and teaching students to be more conversational in their prompts and to use more examples, because all of the AIs literally let you upload examples or upload expectations or images that they will take a look at that helps guide them in the way that they give you the answers back. So we're working on conversational prompting, and we're working on getting students to put more context around the requests that they make, and that really helps with that. Personally, I'm off deep into the agentic AI and learning all the time, and that's a lot of fun, and I see that we've got a lot of that coming in the conference as well. So I hope that answers your question, Barbara.
I'd also like to add to that I would love to see it getting embedded into more courses. So even just some basic AI literacy skills, we have it in some courses, and as time progresses, we're hoping to see it in more.
Yeah, and I'd like to add one more thing that's really important in our process. I'm the person that's ready to jump on the Japanese bullet train and go 400 miles an hour deep into AI. Erica is our ethicist. She thinks about how much water is used to cool these giant centers. She thinks about the ecology of it. She thinks about the impact on students. She is the softer side of Sears of our team. And if you're looking to put together a team to work on AI, it's good to have a maniac, but it's also good to have an anchor that you can work with who goes, whoa, Pete, let's think about this for a second, okay? And so when you're thinking about finding an AI partner to help you work on this stuff, it's good to have someone who is grounded in the long-term aspects of it, any dangers that are involved, and not just the crazy man that wants to run off and find the new way to do something fancy. So, and it's been a great partnership, and a huge kudos to Erica. She's our librarian for our system, and she does an incredible job. She does all of the heavy lifting on this, and really has done a good job of building this over time. So, any other questions?
I see that Joan has asked, how well attended are your webinars? And I would say that each webinar in the live sessions now, we average about 200 attendees at each session. And so we do have a lot of folks showing up for them. We have a great partnership with our marketing department, and so they're really helping us get the word out about these to students when it's time for them to come around. And I truly credit that with being why we're able to get so many students involved, because there was a point, part of the issue that we had with the open office hours is that it was just too much for marketing actually to partner with us. We were doing them too frequently. And so then once they weren't able to partner with us anymore, that's when we really saw the drop off in attendance. So if you have an excellent marketing department like we do, if you're able to partner with them and get the word out about these sessions, that's really one of I would credit is the major reason we have so many eyes on it.
And I think we're at about time. I'm feeling the heat on the back of my neck about time. So
no worries. We actually have one more question here. Can you post the link to the AI Resource Center that you mentioned for access to the webinars? I know you posted the link, but I'm not sure if that's the same link or not.
It is the same link. So once you go there, if you just go to the AI literacy webinars box, they're all on there. So the recorded ones you could watch, you just have to put in your email address.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Erica and Dr. Francis. We really appreciate it. This session was so just blew my mind a little bit, and I'm really excited to dive into the site a little bit more. Thank you for